Okay, well, good morning, one and all. My name is Carter, and again, welcome from me to CS50’s Educator workshop. Today we'll talk about CS50’s curriculum, which is going to be an overview of all of our tools that you have as teachers to teach CS50. And now, one of our first principles in CS50 is really to exude energy while you teach, and David does this obviously very well. But over my past 2 years with the team, I've been learning how to do that myself, and I'll ask of you today to exude some energy yourselves too. So to kick things off, I thought what we'd do is actually have some counting of groups here. So could I come to this table here and have you all say with me, one, say one, one, OK, and two over here, say two, two, three, three, four, four, five, five, and six. All right, awesome. So could we actually have everyone pull out their pen? You should have a pen. And hold that up for me so I know you have it. Everyone has a pen. OK, now groups 1 and 2, could I have you all stand up? And I want you to find somebody from the other group. If you're in 2, find somebody from 1. If you're in 1, find somebody from 2. And go ahead and put your pens together. Go and put your pens together. Yep. Math might not work out, so you can also find someone new. That's great. And now you all remember this for the entire rest of the workshop. You'll say, we touched our pens together. We know each other. We are now pals. OK? So stay there. Now, groups 3 and 4, go ahead and hold your pens up and stand up. Find somebody like they did from the other group. All right. And then 5 and 6, math might not quite work out, but go ahead and try to find that. You can also have groups of 3 if you'd like. And now, everyone has a pair? Yes? OK. 3 questions to talk about. 1, what is your name? 2, where are you coming from? Where have you traveled from? And 3, what was your favorite memory in CS50, either taking the class or teaching it? We'll talk about this for 2 minutes and come back. OK? And we'll let folks settle down. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due. This is an activity from CS50's own Guy White, who's a teaching fellow who's worked with us for a while now. So thank you to Guy for this wonderful activity to get to know some other folks in this room here. Now, the next thing we'll do is think back to our favorite memory in CS50. And you all have these sticky notes of different colors. Could you hold those up for me so I know you have them here? Sticky notes? All right, take your sticky note and take your pen. And I want you to draw this line on your sticky note. Draw this line right here, kind of diagonal like that. Take your pen and draw that line. And actually, I'll do the same so I can show you. So now, I have a line a bit like this, if y'all can see that here. Yeah? All right, now we'll do another line. We'll draw this line kind of up on the side. And now, you should have something like this. One line vertical, one line diagonal, yes? So we're all starting from the same place. And now for the next 1 minute, I'd like you to draw your favorite memory that you talked about on this sticky note. OK? Try to incorporate these lines. But again, draw your favorite memory in CS50, incorporating these two lines on your sticky note. We'll come back in 1 minute. So draw fast. Yes. Your memory. Exactly. And take about 30 more seconds here. About 15 seconds. All right, about 5 seconds before pen's down. OK, and so call it quits on your drawing. If it's OK with you all, I thought we'd take a few of these sticky notes just to show others around the room. So I'll come around in front, Charlie come around in back, and we'll show a few of what we've drawn actually here today. So let me take a few if you don't mind. Awesome, thank you. I'm going to take yours over here. Is that OK? Got yours, Bruce? Take yours over there too, Audra. Take yours. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Awesome, wonderful. OK, I'm so excited to see what these look like here. Let me show a few up here. So we have what looks like maybe a 10. I don't quite know, but this is a good drawing here. We have one that says fatal error with some people who are being drawn here. I love that one. Let me find some mix here. This one looks like two people coding together, which is this is really good. This is awesome. And then let me find just some random ones here. RGB, maybe relating to filter. I don't want to assume, but good one there too. OK, so this was designed to kind of demonstrate by doing a few of the principles in CS50's curriculum. So among those are, one, accessibility, as David talked about. So in the course, we know people come to us from so many different backgrounds, so many experiences. They all draw different things on their sticky notes, right? And our goal is to make sure that each person has a fulfilling experience in CS50. And we design the curriculum to help make sure that happens through our problem sets, our lectures, and so on, which we'll talk about just today in this session here. The next principle, as also David talked about, was community, kind of having fun together, laughing, meeting new people, sharing your names, and so on. And finally, this third one we haven't yet touched on or seen in person just yet, but rigor. Everyone say rigor with me. Rigor. OK, now talk to someone next to you. What do you think rigor means? For 1 minute here, what does rigor mean? We'll come back in 1 minute.
And of course, if the gap's too big, then practice.
Why they have all the different ones. And rigor is really
Some good conversation, but let's come on back. And if you don't mind, could I actually ask somebody to share out what you discussed? What does rigor mean? Could I have somebody from, could I go to this table here and ask you all if anyone from this table likes to share out? It's OK if no. Someone from this table back here, would you all like to share out what you talked about? Yeah, can I give you this microphone real quick? There you go.
Yeah, we just tried to define rigor.
Yeah, and what did you say the definition was?
As something more exact. Sort of, if I say, I think the example I said was that if I say it's a nice day, that's not very rigorous. But if I say the temperature is 80 degrees, then I'm being more rigorous.
Yeah, so it's like being precise, right? It's not a nice day, it's 80 degrees out, which means it's nice. That's a good way of thinking about it. Other ideas about rigor? Could I go? Yeah.
One thing that we said was like getting anybody, but students or whoever it is that you're talking to rise to an expectation or to a bar or something like that. Instead of making things go down, having students or other folks rise up to an occasion.
Definitely, I love that idea too. So thank you all for sharing out and for talking. So there's many definitions of rigor, and I like all that we've talked about today. Like certainly in computer science, it is important to be precise about what you're talking about. It's also important in a class to set high expectations for students, as David also talked about before. So my goal today is to show you all the tools that you have to enact these principles using CS50's curriculum and adapting it to your own classroom. So the first thing to know is that all of our resources are about this URL right here, cs50.tf. And actually, feel free to open up your laptops if you have them and go to that URL there, https://cs50.tf. cs50.tf. And once you're there, you should see something that looks a bit like this. You should see a home page. Give me a thumbs up if you see that home page. Nice. So I'm seeing some thumbs up here. Now this is, as it says, the CS50 handbook, the collection of all the resources available to you to teach CS50. Now you'll see on the left-hand side here, there are all of our in-person courses here on Harvard's campus. But down below, these are the courses that you might teach in your own classroom, adopt or adapt them. And if you click on those links, like CS50AP or CS50X, you'll see those resources for you to work with. So for example, here is the AP homepage. For those unfamiliar, AP is it stands for Advanced Placement. It's kind of something that is more typical to the US, but designed to help get students college credit for their work. We also have CS50X, which you click on and see this right here, which is our version of CS50 for colleges, universities, and even in some cases high schools, for you all to adopt and adapt, as we said before. So using this handbook, you can really build your own curriculum. My goal here is to show you that you don't have to adopt the entire thing. You don't have to go out and teach the way we teach. You can actually adapt it and change things to teach the way that you want to teach. So you'll be building things as you go. Now, among our tools are, as I said before, these two courses here, CS50AP, which is kind of typical to US high schools and so on, but also CS50X, which, as I said before, is also for colleges, universities, our global audience. And there are many more courses I'll touch on towards the end of this session, too. But if you wanted to figure out how to work with these, you probably best start by going to, let's say, CS50AP or CS50X and looking at this curriculum portion here that I've highlighted in yellow. So if you then click on let's say, the 2023-2024 AP homepage, you should see something a bit like this. You'll see the curriculum laid out for you. These are all of the modules, the units, inside of CS50 AP. And if you go to CS50X, all of those that are included there as well. Now, there's a lot to pick and choose from. But the goal here, again, is to have you all pick the things you want to do and build them up to build your own curriculum in the end. So for example, here are first, let's say, 5 modules in CS50. If you're familiar, we start with Scratch, then C, then arrays, then algorithms, then memory. But you yourself could do something entirely different. Like let's say I do want to start with Scratch. I could do that. I could take Scratch and say, that is the base of my course, like this. But I could also say, I want to spend more time on C than CS50 does. So I could take C and expand it. I could make it much bigger in my own course than we do in CS50. I could take our arrays module and make it just a little bit shorter. I don't want to spend as much time on arrays. And I keep going like this, kind of taking things and modifying them as I go, even reordering the curriculum as I'd like to. So you can see at that page right there, all of the building blocks, literally, that you can take and assemble into your own curriculum. And this is formally what we call adopting or adapting, where adopting means take what we've done, use it for your own. Adapting means what we did just here, which is taking bits and pieces, changing them for your own classroom. So then what can you adopt or adapt? Well, among those things you can adopt or adapt are our lectures, our sections, and our shorts. So these are the places students actually interact with the curriculum. They actually want to learn something from our lectures, our sections, our shorts, where we introduce new content. So lectures, you're all familiar with these, right? They're quite long. They're almost a little too long for me. And you can actually shorten them up, break them into smaller pieces. Sorry, David. You can break them into smaller pieces using a very own tool we've created called video.cs50.io. So if you go to this URL right here, video.cs50.io, you can take those lectures and find the bits and pieces that you want to show to your students. You could do the same thing for, let's say, our shorts, which, if you're not familiar, are these videos made by my colleague Doug that try to introduce the same topics in lecture, but in a different way. So you can actually understand the material all the better from somebody new who's explaining it. You can do the same thing for our sections, which are designed to follow lecture and actually equip students with some hands-on practice to get involved with learning those concepts in a more hands-on way, more interactive way through these videos here as well. So these are our lectures, our sections, and our shorts designed to introduce content that you can either take bits and pieces of or use on your own. We also have, of course, our problem sets. I won't show you all of these because you are likely familiar with them. But just to highlight again, as David mentioned, we have all kinds of tracks in those, for those who are more comfortable, less comfortable, and even more recently for those who are least comfortable. And this in particular, for least comfortable students, is actually something we've been working on over the past year or so, simply taking our existing problem sets and adding in more hints, more scaffolding for students, something that you could do as well. You could take filter, for instance, which is kind of a hard problem set, and just add in your own hints for students as they work on that problem, for instance. So here we have our content that you all can use, adopt, or adapt. Let me pause here and ask, what questions do you have so far, if any, on our curriculum, lectures, sections, shorts? Yeah?
I don't see, just in here, there's not, it doesn't look like there's one for Python or the other expansion packs or modules.
Yeah, great question. So let me actually try to find this picture again. And the question was, if I look at this page, I don't necessarily see Python, or I don't necessarily see web development or so on. So this page is designed to show you the courses that we do have a lot of teaching materials for. Things like Python or web development, we don't have quite the same level of support as we do for these courses here, but you can find those on the very own websites that I'll share with you a little bit later. So these two courses are kind of our flagship courses, if you will. We focused a lot of time on making these teaching resources. But you can also find those for Python, web development, and so on their own course websites too. Good question. Yeah, other questions too.
Do you have any experiences of people adopting or adapting that seems to have worked well, or can you give us some history?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, let me just jump ahead a few slides to answer that question here. So the question was, are there any examples of people adopting or adapting the curriculum that have worked really well? Is that right? And so let me actually show you, if I could jump ahead a few slides here. Among our teaching resources are things like these. So we've had a few teachers who have come before you all, come before even my time, and who have worked to create their very own curricular materials that expand on CS50's here. So for example, Margaret Tanzosh, who teaches in New York City, she made her own set of practice problems that she then emailed to us, worked with us to then make them public, and we now have them for you all to work with too. Same with Douglas Kang, who in his classroom wanted to make CS50 a daily experience. Every day, students would come to him in his classroom. He wanted to have something for them to do. So he made what he called daily checks, which are basically questions that touch on CS50's problem sets, and had students work on those in his own classroom. And we published those for you to work with as well. Does that answer your question? Awesome. Other questions too? OK. So we've seen some good examples of adaptations here. Let me just keep going and show you some more resources here as well. If I go to, let's see, our teaching resources. So in addition to the curriculum, which includes our lectures, our sections, our shorts, our problem sets, and so on, we've designed some resources to help you teach those, or to help you teach what you want to teach from those. And these actually come from us trying to train our own teachers here on campus. As David noted, we hire a lot of TAs, teaching fellows, to help teach the class on campus. These are some of the resources we give to them to help teach the class as well. So among these resources are things like these. If you go to highlighting this, like the Vault, daily checks, grading and feedback guides, practice problems, lesson materials. I'm going to highlight just a few of these for you today. So lesson materials. These are the materials for our sections here on campus. And again, sections are those classes that come after lectures. Students will first go to a lecture with David. They'll then go to a smaller class that we call a section, led by myself or a teaching fellow, that goes through the content in a more hands-on, interactive way. So here you'll see different lesson plans for each week that touch on some problems you could use, some slides you could use, and so on. And I've actually tried to create my slides here and share them with you all for you, again, to adopt or adapt. I've kind of lovingly annotated them so you can see not just what we taught, but also why we taught it in some way. So if you're wanting to touch on any of these topics and you're feeling like, oh, I'm not sure what slides to use, these could be helpful for you here as well. We also have, as Mark said before, some practice problems to use in your own sections, led by Margaret Tanzosh, some daily checks you could use, which are kind of smaller problems you could use in your own classroom, made by Douglas Kang, and so on. So these are kind of the resources that can help support you while you're teaching CS50. Now, let me pause here and see what questions we have on any of those, if any. Yeah?
I think one thing, you may have this, you may not, but one thing that would be really helpful, especially if we're going to adapt, move things around.
Yeah.
If there's like almost like goalposts, timelines, like by week 4, regardless of what order you do it, by week 4 they should have X, and by week 8 they should have Y.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't think we have something deliberately like that, but what I would say to that is you could probably look at the curriculum outline on the, let's say, CS50AP homepage, CS50X homepage, and you could see, I think let me try to find it on my own computer. Let me try to find the lecture here. So for example, in week 0, up top are all these topics we want students to learn as part of that week. So if you say, by week 0, you should learn X, if you look at the top of that page, that's kind of the goalpost, if you will, for that kind of week. But it could be a little more deliberate, too. Good question. Other questions, too? Yeah?
I know you talked about how you've got the more comfortable, the less comfortable, and then you've introduced the least comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
As I was poking around a little bit, is it not there yet?
Yeah, so formally for question was, we talked about more comfortable, less comfortable, and least comfortable. Where do I find those in the problem sets? Is that right? So formally, we still have more and less comfortable on the problem set pages. We've tried to modify the less comfortable version of the problem set to be also for those who are least comfortable. And so we've added like optional hints, optional drop-downs you could use in some places to get those extra hints you might need as a least comfortable student. But if you're curious, I can help kind of guide you through and point out where those things are too as well. OK. Let me touch on one more resource here, which is our grading and feedback guide. So as you're teaching CS50, you might also want to be giving feedback on student work. So let me find this slide here. Let me find this. You might want to be giving feedback on student work. How are they doing? What should they be doing to improve their work as you go? So we've made available to you the same rubrics we would apply in the college course, but now just online for you to use as well. So if you go to the grading and feedback page, you'll see first an overview of how we grade student work. In effect, we have 3 different things we grade for a student's work. We look at the correctness of the code. That is, does it work? We look at the design of the code, which is how well does it work? And we look at the style of the code. That is, how readable is that code? And for now, we've been focusing on this 1 to 5 scale, where a 5 is excellent, no improvements are possible, and a 1 is, well, it really could be a lot better, and here's how it could be a lot better, right? So in addition to the overarching principles of grading in this way, we also have, if the slide comes back, problem set specific guidelines, which you'll see here. And you'll see some for like problem set 1, problem set 2, problem set 3, and so on. If you're curious how to grade, let's say, Caesar, you can go to that particular problem set and see how we've graded Caesar in particular. So just one more resource at your disposal here. Yeah?
I was poking around at these. The sharing settings are set somehow where I currently do not have access to those guidelines.
Yes, a good point to make. So if you want access to these guidelines, because they are grading and feedback guidelines, we want to make sure that only teachers have access to these. So you can go to, let me see if it shows up here. You can go to, so if you see this blue alert, for example, on the AP page and the X page, just make sure you fill out this form here, and you'll be able to make sure you have access to those guidelines. Because currently they are, by default, vaulted behind permissions. Good question. OK. Let me make sure I covered everything here. It's kind of a whirlwind tour. One last thing to highlight while we're all together are our additional courses. So David mentioned these before. But if you find that you want to teach more than CS50X, more than CS50AP, we have many, many courses for you to choose from. As we mentioned before, they don't quite have the same level of teaching resource support just yet, but you can still find the lectures, the problem sets, the assignments to use and adopt in your own classroom. So here, for example, is a short list of these here on edX, so you could try to take a look at on edX as well. You could also find a full name list here with these 2 in particular being fairly new, and the list goes on and on. And so before we take some more questions here and probably do a demo of some number sorting here, I wanted to mention, if the slide comes back, that you all are part of our community now, and you have the ability to make your own versions of CS50, to make your own problems, to share them with us. And I hope that you do so, that you make your own adaptations, that you email them to us, you tell us what you're doing, so we can add you to this community, add you to these resources here, and we can build a community together. So we'll end officially here, but happy to take any more questions on our resources and support available to you as teachers. Any other questions?
Now, what are
Yeah.
the other popular CS50 courses after Python? I know that you already mentioned, that David mentioned, but what are other courses that's used by teachers in high schools?
Yeah, great question. So for those who are watching over Zoom, the question was, what are some other popular courses besides the Python course, for instance, that teachers might be using? We found that both the AI class, led by Brian, and also the web development class are two popular choices if you're looking to go more advanced than CS50. If you want to go beyond what CS50 teaches, that's why we have web programming and why we have the AI class as well. Also, if you are somebody who is thinking, I'm not sure if CS is for me, I kind of just want to start with the very, very basics, that's a good chance to use CS50's Understanding Technology class. This is a course on the basics of technology. What is a computer? How does it work? How would you build one? What are the parts of a computer, for instance? And how do those work all together? So I hope that helps answer a little bit. Other questions, too? All right, so we will wrap officially here and take a break before Rongxin session on our own software tools that you can use as teachers. In the meantime, though, I think we'll do a brief demo from David's lecture from earlier. So we'll see you all in a bit. Thank you all.
All right, so we are back, and we have a buffet of plastic numbers here. Theatrically, just to give a sense of how you might run a demonstration in your own class. And so, for instance, could we get like one brave volunteer to come up? Yes? OK, what's your name again? Phil. Phil. OK, Phil. A round of applause for Phil. Tough crowd. OK, so Phil, if you want to stand in front of the table, we have here a bunch of numbers in pretty much random order. Could you go ahead and sort them for us? From smallest to largest. All right, a round of applause too. So let me ask someone in the group if you want to stay here. No, you stay here if you don't mind. What did Phil just do? What was his algorithm?
Bubble sort.
OK, I heard bubble sort. Of course, there's always that kid, though. What's bubble sort? Oh, sorry, Bruce?
I said fill sort.
Fill sort. OK, fill sort. Phil, what was your approach?
I did a bunch of different things. I did use bubble sort at one point, especially for my last little bit. But I started at the left, and I looked for the numbers that were most in order already, and then I moved them around accordingly. So I did a couple of different things. I swapped some numbers, and I bubble sorted some numbers, and I may have done at least one other thing.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
You debugged, as I recall, too.
Yeah.
So it felt like there's a little bit of selection early on, and I definitely did see some bubble sorting, or at least some swapping at the very end, which was compelling. And this is actually a perfect example of kind of a discomfort I have sometimes in front of a class, whereby I don't really know how to describe what the student did other than it being fairly organic. And so it's kind of an opportunity, if a little uncomfortable, because I don't know exactly what Phil is going to do with his sorting, that I have to think on the fly, all right, how do we now kind of rein things in and do things a little more methodically? So what I might do at this point, because you definitely had this assortment of ideas, and I'm not sure if that would work as well if we had like 15 numbers or 50 numbers or 500. So let me just kind of resort things a little randomly here. And let's see if we can maybe, as a group, coerce Phil into doing something a little more algorithmically. So this seems reasonably random now. And maybe let's just kind of do a round robin here. Could someone give us one instruction for Phil to do? Give us one instruction. Any instruction. Bruce, give us the first instruction.
Take the number 7 and move it one space to the right.
Take the number 7 and move it. Run space to Bruce's right, I think.
Right, and swap it with the 4.
Or to Bruce's left.
And
my
swap
right,
it with
yes.
the 4.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry about that.
Yeah. OK, swap in with the 4. All right, someone else, if we could. Yeah, can we go to...
Repeat it.
Repeat.
Repeat the same, yeah.
Repeat.
I might point
take
out
this.
that's a little ambiguous because we don't know what we want you to repeat it with.
Right. If I took the 7 and swapped it with the 4
Move one place to right.
to one place to the right.
OK, nice. How about a third instruction? We won't do it all the way to the finish line here.
Continue.
Continue.
with it, swap it with a bigger number than 7.
Okay.
Repeat until you're about to swap it with a bigger number than 7. So we got as far as that. So, and here too, let me sort of call out the experience. Here, I think, to our discussion of theatricality earlier too, like at some point we're probably going to spend, probably going to end up spending too much time on this, such that like even the sharpest of students in the room has no idea like what the takeaway was supposed to be. And so what I would encourage us to do typically is try to maybe take control over the situation a bit more. So let me like go like this. And let me propose that, all right, Phil, I'm going to give you an algorithm if you don't mind. I want you to start on the left. I want you to work your way to the right. And for every pair of numbers you encounter, leave them alone if they look correct or swap them if they don't. I might get him started to just give me a whole round. So if you would.
Okay. So those are okay. Those I'll swap.
Good.
Nope. Those I'll swap.
Good.
Those I'll swap. And those are good. There you go.
Nice.
Swap those.
And now I might take a step back and consider, all right, what did Phil just do? Well, notice that the 8, which used to be in the middle, has kind of bubbled its way up to the end of the list. And meanwhile, other problems have been sort of solved by moving closer to this end here. So now, are we done? Well, obviously not, but notice that we've solved at least one problem. So I would try to highlight for students that even though it's still clearly a mess, the 8 is correct. So I feel like we've taken a big problem and we've taken at least one bite out of it, so now it's smaller. And you know what, Phil, go ahead and do the exact same thing if you could, but you don't need to even bother with the 8 because it's good.
Okay. So those are good. Those are good. Swap those.
And done. And now I might ask a student, for instance, like, what just happened? What problems did we solve?
Once again, you move from the smaller to the larger, and now it's more sequence, but there's still a bug there.
Good. So there's still some, there's still some numbers out of order, but notice we've solved at least 2 problems. So we've taken a second bite out of the problem. And I would try to give students these visuals to latch onto, like, okay, problem is getting smaller, 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 and let's just do it for a third time with us here. Do it once more if you could, and let's see if we can solve a third problem together.
Okay.
Good. Good.
5, 6.
And good. And perfect. And here's where now I might commandeer things in and point out, okay, we seem to now be seeing a pattern. So now we've solved the 6 problem, the 7 problem, and the 8 problem. It stands to reason that if Phil continues this Phil sort algorithm, then we're going to get all 8 numbers ultimately in 8 total steps. But wait a minute, it's not really 8 total steps because Phil, how many maybe human steps did you have to take in your first pass?
Oh, I don't know. More than it seemed like, because I was looking at a number and deciding to leave it alone, as well as looking at numbers and deciding to move them.
Yeah, fair. And to be fair, we didn't ask Phil to keep track of how many steps, but let me propose that you could think of it as sort of each number takes like 1 human step, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 until we get to the end. So it's 7 or essentially 8 steps to solve the first problem. But then he doesn't have to go this far, so then it's 7 steps. Plus another 6 steps, plus another 5 steps, and 4, and so that's going to now lead us to a discussion. It might get a little mathy, but at least we've given students this visual for taking a problem and taking bites out of it again and again and again, but pointing out that through this looping cycle, it's not just 8 total steps. Like there's a bunch of middle steps along the way that are probably going to start to add up. And here I might use the whiteboard, I might use some pre-prepared slides, and this is maybe a more detailed answer to that question earlier about what is that right balance. You kind of read the room here, and I'm using more words now than I think I would with our own students, so we'd be into this a little faster. But that to me is kind of the spirit of what guides my own thinking about these kinds of demonstrations in class. And I will very often then just finish it for students to give them closure as opposed to risking it going on a little too long. Would you have done anything differently as a teacher or as a student, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think I may have, if I was watching myself do that, I may have stopped myself at some point in there to like, explain or something like that. But I guess you did that afterwards. So no, I don't think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe a round of applause one last time for Phil, if we could. Why don't we go ahead and take a 5-minute break here too, and we'll start in 5 minutes to get a little ahead of schedule, and we'll have lunch a little earlier then perhaps. So see you in 5.